Okay, I want you to picture this. A floating city, a massive drilling rig, or a deep-sea construction ship getting hammered by wind and waves. Now, imagine its job is to stay perfectly, I mean absolutely still, sometimes for weeks. It's one of those huge hidden challenges of our modern world.
So, how in the world do you do it? How do you park a 20,000-ton ship in a storm with millimeter precision when there's literally nothing to tie off to? You can't just drop an anchor when you're working miles above the seafloor. I mean, it sounds completely impossible, right?
Well, the answer is this incredible piece of tech called dynamic positioning, or just DP for short. The best way to think about it is like a person treading water, constantly making these tiny, automatic adjustments with their arms and legs just to stay in one spot. A DP system does the exact same thing, but it's a super smart computer brain controlling a whole array of powerful thrusters, fighting back against every single wave, every gust of wind, every second of the day. But what? What happens when that system fails?
All right, so here's our game plan for this deep dive. First, we're going to look at a year of incidents to really get a sense of the problem. Then we'll break down the 4 main reasons these things fail. After that, we'll get into the good stuff, the real stories of mistakes and glitches. And finally, we'll talk about what we can learn from all of this. So all of our info today comes from this really fascinating document, the 2007 report on station keeping incidents from the International Marine Contractors Association, or IMCA. You can think of them as the official scorekeepers for the offshore world, tracking every single time this amazing technology goes wrong. And get this, in 2007, out of a fleet of 365 DP vessels, there were 67 officially reported incidents where a ship just lost its position. That's more than 1 a week. But hold on, that number is probably just the tip of the iceberg. The report's authors say it themselves, and I'm quoting here, "It is felt that underreporting is still occurring." When they crunch the numbers on the whole fleet, they figure the real number of incidents could be closer to 500. That's more than 1 every single day. So who's having all these problems? Well, this chart shows that the most frequent reports are coming from dive support and drilling vessels. And that makes total sense, right? These are the super high-stakes operations where staying put isn't just for convenience. It's absolutely critical for safety. A sudden move out there can be catastrophic. Now, the report makes this really important distinction. An incident is exactly what it sounds like, a total loss of position. The ship drifted away. An undesired event, though, that's a close call. Something went wrong, but the crew or the backup systems managed to stop a drift-off at happening. For what we're talking about today, we're focusing on the serious ones, the incidents. And this all leads us to the big question. Why? Why do these unbelievably sophisticated systems actually fail? Well, as it turns out, you can trace most of these failures back to just a handful of culprits. So here's the breakdown from 2007. The biggest offender by far was the computer system itself. That's 28% of all incidents. Right behind that, you've got a tie between power generation and position reference systems, both at 19%. And then, of course, you've got good old human error sitting at 13%. So let's dig into each one of these.
All right, let's move past the numbers, because to really get a feel for how these things go wrong, we have to look at the real stories, the stuff pulled straight from the incident logs. These are the weird glitches and simple mistakes that those percentages actually represent.
First up, culprit number 1, the computer. This thing is the central nervous system of the whole operation. It's constantly doing insane calculations, sending commands to the thrusters, and in 2007, it was the single biggest cause of failure. Just listen to incident hashtag 0735, a case I call the software ghost. So, a dive support vessel is carefully backing away from a platform. The supervisor says, "All stop." The operator on the bridge pushes a totally normal sequence of buttons, and boom. A software bug that had been hiding in the code for 8 years suddenly wakes up. The computer freaks out, thinks the ship has instantly jumped to a new location, and slams the thrusters to full power to fix it. The ship just takes off, totally out of control. The only way they stopped it was by grabbing the manual joystick and wrestling control back. A literal ghost in the machine. All right, let's move on to culprit number 2, power generation. You see, those thrusters need a ridiculous amount of electricity, and it all comes from the ship's own power plant. If those generators fail and the lights go out, the DP system is dead in the water, and the ship is just a big drifting piece of steel. And you know what? Sometimes the reason for the failure is just bizarre. In incident #072, a drilling vessel has one generator after another fail, leading to a total blackout. The ship drifts over a mile from its spot. So what was the culprit? Fish. Small fish. A whole school of them had somehow gotten past the filters and completely clogged up the cooling systems for the ship's engines. They overheated and shut down. A multi-billion-dollar operation taken down by a school of fish. You can't make this stuff up.
Okay, on to culprit number 3. Position reference. The DP computer might be a genius, but it's blind. It needs outside help, usually from a bunch of GPS systems, to tell it where it is. If those eyes get blinded, the whole system is totally lost.
And it's shocking how easily this can happen. In incident #0726, a vessel is holding its position right next to another ship. The crane on that second ship just swings its boom over the first one. That's it. But that simple action physically blocked the view of the sky for the GPS antennas. All 3 GPS systems lost their satellite lock at the same time, and just like that, the DP system was flying blind. They had to switch to manual control immediately.
And that brings us to our 4th and final culprits, the one that's often the hardest to predict: human error. It doesn't matter how smart the automation is, there's always a person in the loop, making decisions, pushing buttons, and, yeah, sometimes making mistakes. Incident #0751 is such a classic and, frankly, terrifying example. A DP operator is working on some other piece of equipment near the main console. His arm just brushes against the surge control button and deselects it. He doesn't even notice. The ship slowly starts to drift sideways, and because nobody knew it happened, it took way too long to figure out what was wrong. By the time the red alert finally blared, the vessel was 135 meters off target, and they had to hit the emergency disconnect to save the well. All of that from one accidental little push. So, after hearing all these stories of software ghosts, fish attacks, and accidental pushes, you kind of have to ask, why does any of this matter? Why are we poring over these old reports? Well, the point is definitely not to place blame. It's because every single one of these incident reports is a lesson, a hard-earned lesson. That software ghost, it leads to a critical update that protects hundreds of other ships. That fish attack, it leads to redesigned filters. The accidental button push, that leads to better console designs and better training for the operators. Failure, it turns out, is the best teacher there is. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. Dynamic positioning is an absolutely critical technology, but it isn't magic. It's this super complex system where things go wrong at the intersection of technology, the environment, and us, the people. And the only way to make it safer is to obsessively report and analyze every single failure, so we can use that knowledge to build tougher systems and create smarter, better trained operators. And that kind of leaves us with a final, much bigger question to think about. These incidents, even though they're from over a decade ago, give us this perfect window into the challenges of automation. So I'll leave you with this thought. As our technology gets more and more automated and these systems get more and more complex, who is ultimately in control? Is it the human or is it the machine?